I wish I could give you a plausible reason as to why I'm wearing this hot ass shirt, but my only excuse is that I like this shirt and I look cute. I actually already recorded this video like days ago, and I didn't upload it because I don't know why, but I forgot to film a thumbnail, and for some odd reason when I forget to film thumbnails, I'm like, let's just scrap the whole video and start over. So I'm lucky I did, because I'm realizing that I literally forgot 2 whole books when I was talking about it. But anyways, I'm going to be doing my May wrap up. I only read 15 books this month. I know a lot of people like 15 books is a lot, but for me 15 books is like, man, because I typically read like up to 30 books. So I mean, I wasn't doing my best. Like, I was reading really good towards the beginning, and then towards the end of the month I kind of was just like. So the first book I read in May was this book called Raw. I ended up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. I read this book because I want to do a recommendations. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I want to put this book in a recommendations video. And I actually read this book before. This is the second time reading. I read this book back when I was in high school, because I talk about this a lot on my channel, but I used to read a lot of Justin Bieber fan fiction, and I think in Justin Bieber fan fiction is they would take real books and they would replace the main character, the main guy character, with the celebrity name. So I read this as a Justin Bieber fan fiction. It was a book first. I just want to say it was a book first. And this book was basically about this girl who has this stalker, and he saves her life one day, and then they end up falling in love. And like, it was cool when I read it when I was younger, and like I loved it when I reread it. I was like, this shit is boring. Like, it was weird. He would like sleep in her bed, and she knew he was sleeping in her bed. She was like, he would never get under the covers. Girl, first of all, because if anybody's in my bed that's not me, we're gonna have a problem. I don't know what Team Me was on to. She's canceled. Team Miami is canceled. The next book I read was Curing Dr. Benton, and I also read this one for a book recommendation, and I only ended up giving it 3 stars. This book was about this girl who, like, she's like studying at this like doctor's place, and she's getting involved with the doctor. I just really didn't like the book because I feel like it all happened too fast, and there was no like build up between it. It literally was just like, it just started off into it. And for most people, like, that would be interesting, but I really did not care about this book. Like, I barely even remember anything I read in this book, if I'm being quite honest with you guys. So the next book I read was The Silver Swan, and I gave this book 3.5 out of 5 star. I read this book because I was doing a bully romance recommendations, because bully romance is one of my favorite romances. So I was reading this just because I wanted to do like a recommend this book. And one thing I like to do is, like, when I do a recommendation, I like to do trope recommendations. So I like to binge read all that in that trope and then do a recommendations video. But for this book, I just wasn't feeling it. Like, the book was basically about this girl, and she ends up moving to this new town because her dad is getting married, and there's this rumor going around that her mom actually killed her dad's mistress, which is not a rumor, it's actually true. And this good book was okay. She ends up getting involved with like the popular boys who have like this secret society kind of thing. The woman that her dad is married to has a son, and he's in it as well. And it was like pretty interesting, but the main girl just was really annoying, and she felt like try hard badass-ish. In these kind of bully romances, the character is either try hard badass or like really annoying and like soft, and like she was try hard badass. So I just didn't care. Like, I was like, okay. And then like, it was so try hard because like they made her have a gun, and like that was so quirky that she had a gun. Like, it was weird. Like, that was weird now that I think about it. Like, it was weird when I read it, but like now that I think about it, it was really weird. Like, why was that I digress. Next book I read. So then I read The Secret Girl, which I gave 5 out of 5 stars. Chandler read this book, but she ended up DNFing it. And The Secret Girl reminds me of She's the Man with Amanda Bynes, which I freaking love. She's the Man. It's one of my all-time favorite movies, and it basically is the same thing. It's about this girl who ends up going to this all-boys school, and she obviously is going as a boy, and I believe it was to like see if they could get girls to like come to their school or something like that, which didn't make sense because why didn't she just go as a girl? But this book actually has more to it than just that. There's this whole mystery going around with one of the characters. His sister ends up dying, and everyone else, it's ruled as a suicide, but he knows his sister and he knows it's not a suicide, so everyone else kind of gave up on the case, but he didn't. And I think someone is like finding out her secret, so like sending her death threats. And I just thought that this book was really, really good. And it was a reverse harem story, which reverse harem is usually like 3 or more guys and 1 girl. Sometimes they do like sexual things, sometimes they don't, but I believe like it has to be sexual in order for with two characters to be sexual in order for it to be considered a reverse harem. I'm not too sure on the logistics with that. I just know I like reading it. Like that's what I wanted to do a video on that as well, but I think I'll do it. Like if you guys want those videos, I will do them. Like I love dark romances and like the segments of dark romances, so if you guys want recommendations on those or any other kind of recommendations, I really don't mind. I love giving recommendations. It's like my favorite kind of videos to film, and I'll also leave link down below my other recommendations videos because I give recommendations all the time. Like I love it. And anyway, so I really loved it because it had like the good friend group, and I really love tight-knit friend groups in books. So I was really feeling the tight-knit friend group in this, and just like they were so funny, and like they did bully her because they thought that they bullied her as a guy, and they thought that he was like really annoying. So I personally didn't mind it, but I mean, if someone else finds it problematic, I definitely will go back and just change my rating. Like I really, you know, I don't own the book, so it's not like I gotta give it away. Like I don't mind going back and giving it a 2 star. I do it all the time. So if you read it and you think it's problematic, let me know. I'll go change my rating real fast, real quick. I have no problem with that. Then I read the second book, The Ruthless Boys, which I ended up giving 4 stars. I really liked it because like there's this huge mystery aspect in the book. So the second book ended off on a cliffhanger. So I was like, dang, like this is really good. So I picked it up, and it was like okay, it wasn't good as the first. Like the cliffhanger ended up getting solved pretty soon into it, and like it was okay. Like it wasn't a bad book. Like I didn't hate it, obviously, because I gave it 4 stars. But I can't really talk about the book because it's a sequel. So then I read the last book, The Forever Crew, which I gave also 4 out of 5 stars, and it just wrapped everything up quickly. I'm so beyond surprised I read it because I am so bad at reading trilogies. I'm bad at reading series, but trilogies, I'm just bad at reading them. Like I'm so surprised I read it, and I think I really pushed through it because when I read the first book I was really in love with it, and then I liked the second book, but I didn't like it that much, and I was like, well, I can't not finish the third book, so I finished it, and it's getting really hot. That's really why I finished it, because like typically I will not finish a series. Like I'm so bad at reading series, like you guys do not understand. And then I read this book, what is it, I almost called it a quadruple, like I'm like, what is it called, a quartet? Is that what you call a 4-book series? It was a damn 4-book series. So I forget what the series with the self name was, but the books are called Tempt Me, Break Me, Teach Me, and Surrender to Me. So Tempt Me was the first book. I ended up giving this 4.5. No, I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars. I only had one 5-star book this month, and that was the Secret Girl. But I ended up giving this book 4 out of 5 stars, and this book was basically about this girl who lives in this small town, and she's engaged to this guy and finds out that this guy cheats on her. So instead of being a normal sane family, the family is like pushing her to still be with him instead of being a normal sane person. Instead of leaving him, she's like, okay, like he's like wait for me, like we'll get better. Basically he's like, I'm gonna do what I want, but you're gonna be loyal to me. Basically that kind of guy, you know, the kind of guy where like you're like talking to the guy, and like when you talk to other guys, like it makes him mad, but when he talks to other girls, like it's okay to him. That kind of guy, the ones that aren't right in the head. Then she ends up deciding, like, no, I'm not gonna stay here and wait for this man. And she ends up going to work at this kind of like lodge kind of thing in Alaska, and I really liked it because it had that campy feel to it, but it also gave you secretary romance because she actually ends up working for the guy that owns it as his like assistant. So basically it's like a little bit of office romance, and I really liked that. But the thing about the story that really annoyed me was everyone who, this girl, like they were so in love with her, and she, like, the author had to keep telling us how innocent she was and how like desirable she was and how beautiful she was, and the main character was so naive, like unbelievably naive, to the point where it was extremely annoying. And like she really didn't have any personality other than like being super beautiful and like desirable and being innocent, because obviously she was a virgin because she was waiting to, I forgot to mention that she was waiting to get married, so that's what I wanted her to wait for him. But it was a good book, but the main character did annoy me. But I like some of the aspect of the book, and I like the side characters. Like the side characters were written very well, and I actually ended up reading this book because Lacey Love Books ended up talking about this book, and like she read from her favorite author. I think the author name is Casey West. I've never read a Casey West book. The author name was Casey West, and she has like this pen name, so she wants to see like if the books were good, and she was talking about it, and I was like, this sounds right up my alley. And it actually was really good. It was just how the main character irritated me that really stopped me from giving this a full 4 stars. So then I read the next book, which was 4.5 stars, and was actually my favorite in the series. And it's crazy because this book is a follow to the last book, except the main guy ends up leaving her, so then she ends up, it's like a shared, like they kind of share her kind of romance, and like the build up to this book was actually really good. She ends up meeting 2 other guys, and they end up like not falling in love, but they end up taking interest in each other, and so they, like, I guess, experiment with each other. And then I just really liked it because of that aspect and like the build up to it. And then I ended up reading the 3rd book, which was Teach Me, and the last book, Serenity, which Serenity. I ended up reading the last book, Surrender to Me, which I ended up giving 3 stars because I really got bored of the series after that point. Like the 2nd book, like the 3rd book was so different from the 2nd book because she ends up going back to Homeboy in the 1st book. He did nothing wrong with her, but she ended up going back to Homeboy in the 1st book, so the other 2 guys end up not being shit, I guess. So I just didn't really care about the 3rd and 4th book, especially because I'm, like I said, I'm so surprised I read these books because I'm not good at reading series. So I already am not good at reading series, so the fact that I read these is just, I feel I'm gonna pat myself on the back because I am really proud of myself. So then I read The Last Wish, and I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars, and I actually really liked the book. I really only read the books because I got a Kindle Switch. I really only got this book because I got a Switch, and I got The Witcher on the Switch, and I really like, well, I haven't really played the game like that, honestly. I'm not that good at the game, so I don't play it, but I watch the TV show and I'm obsessed with the TV show. And Yennefer, she's that girl. Yennefer is one of my all-time favorite characters. Like, I actually love Yennefer now, and I'm so glad I watched the show. She's such a strong character, and I like this book. I just, compared to the TV show, I didn't really like it as much. It basically is a bunch of short stories that follow the Witcher, and it's literally the same thing as the TV show. I just like the TV show more because I got to see it in action, I guess. Sometimes when I imagine things, my brain isn't as well as imagining things as it is for most people. So when I was watching it, I enjoyed it a lot more. So then I ended up reading Beautiful and Dirty by Katrina Jackson, and Katrina Jackson is actually one of my new favorite authors. I really love reading her. I read 2 of her, I think I read 2, it was either 2 or 3 of her books last month, and I ended up falling in love with her. So I heard she was coming out with this, like a mafia kind of romance, and I was like, oh, period, okay. So she also has an office romance, which I need to read, but I ended up not giving into that this month because I just stopped reading. But Beautiful and Dirty I actually really liked. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. It would have been a lot higher, but it just dealt with something I didn't really like. So basically this book is about this girl who has this boyfriend, and her boyfriend on a trip to Italy, and her boyfriend ends up basically leaving her, so she ends up by herself, and she ends up meeting this guy, this Italian guy, and they take interest in each other, and they end up like having a one-night stand with each other. A little bit of build up between that as well, which I really like. But the only reason why I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars is the fact that it had cheating in it, because I really do not like cheating in my books, and I think I actually rated this book way too generously. Like, I should have given this book either a 3.5 or a 4 because I really do not like cheating in books, and I feel like under no circumstances is cheating in books necessary. But I really like I really love Katrina Jackson, so I want to give my good sister benefit of the doubt. And then I also read The Worst Best Man, which I ended up giving 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I listened to this book on audiobook. And this book is about this girl who's getting married to this guy, and he ends up leaving her at the altar, and so her brother is like his best man, and he has to tell her like, yo, my brother's not about to marry you, sis. And she's like, dang, like, she's mad. So a few years go by, and she ends up being a wedding planner, and she ends up working for this lady, and then their company ends up being like to work for her too, which I don't know what the heck their company is, because when I was listening to the audiobook I missed it, and so I kept listening closely to like figure out what company it was, and I never could figure it out. So that was fun. But I really liked the romance between the two, and I really liked the main character because she was strong, and she's black, she's like darker skin black, and I really appreciate that. Like, the author is Afro-Latinx, so its own voices, and I really love that. And I really love reading about her family and his family, and like their relationship as brothers. And like, it was just so funny because her and the brother had to work together, which is how they end up becoming so close. So it also had that forbidden love aspect that I like. Like, it would have like them saying like they wanted to be with each other, but they couldn't because of the brother, or like him wanting to be with her. And like her family, his family loved her. Like, his family was so mad when the brother left her at the altar because they loved her, and like no girlfriend after his could amount to her. So it was just funny because he, like, you know, his brother ended up being with her, and it's like they got her back in their family. He just wasn't with the right sibling. And I really like their sibling dynamic because they didn't really get along that well, but they worked together, and they obviously didn't hate each other or anything. But there's just a lot of aspects of this book that I really did enjoy. The book that I read after that, I read Black Knight, which I ended up giving 2 out of 5 stars, guys. And this was my most anticipated book of the month. So this book is in follow-up of the series that I read last month, which was about like this this high school bully romance. And this book follows these childhood enemies to lovers, basically. In the last book, they both played best friends. So he played best friends to the main boy character, and she played best friends to the main girl character. So now they have their own book, and I actually have been waiting for it because you could see the build-up in the books, and I really enjoyed that. Like, I really love that in books when like there's gonna be a spin-off or like a second book that follows those characters, so you can see like the build-up and the dynamic between the two characters. And like, I love it. And so I really like, well, I didn't like this book, but I was loving the book at first. It was low-key kind of triggering me. Like, it dealt with a lot of self-harm, which I'm usually not triggered, but I think the way it was written really was what was triggering me about that. And it also deals with a lot of things like eating disorders and stuff. So like, I remember reading this and like tearing up, like not crying, but like literally tearing up. And I was just like, why the heck am I like triggered by this? Because I'm usually not triggered in books. And then we get to the part that made me give it 2 stars. So basically, this book obviously deals with like them being best friends, and then they stop being best friends, and then they go their own separate ways. And her brother is actually like really like heavily inspired by him, I guess. It's not really the word I'm looking for. He's really influenced by him. Like, he looks up to him. So like the guy will pick the younger brother up, because the younger brother is like young. The guy would pick the younger brother up, and she would be like, why didn't you call me? And like, so they have that dynamic with each other where they have to deal with each other, but now they really have to deal with each other because their best friends are dating each other. So they obviously are like getting closer, and he like has like this huge jealousy issues. This series really deals with like a lot of like jealousy. So if you don't like jealousy in your books, I would not suggest reading these. But if you don't mind jealousy, I would say, girl, check these out. But even then, be cautious, because the jealousy in this book is really like, even for me, like, I pretty much will take any kind of jealousy, and the jealousy in these books are just like, you know. So then we get to the part where the reason why I gave it 2 stars, and that was because it had an incest plotline. And I don't do incest, honey. So there was this part where they're like making out or whatever, and then a few chapters later you find out that like something happens to her, and he has to like tell her why he was avoiding her, and finds out that they are really related. Like, he found that out when they were younger. So it really made it weird that he knew they were related when they made out, but he still made out with her. And then you end up finding out that they're actually not related, which is like, girl, pick one. But they still made incest jokes towards each other, and I just thought that was really weird. And that's why I ended up giving it 2 stars, because I was like, I can't get behind this. And it's just like, literally, I hate, why do authors use incest in books? Like, I really don't understand it. Like, I feel like I would rather take a secret pregnancy than you writing incest in your books. Like, come on now. And the last book I read was Boy in Jeopardy, and this book was actually written by one of my friends on book Twitter, and I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. This book was a poetry book, and I really don't read poetry books that often, but I really loved and enjoyed this book. There was a lot of poems that it really resonated with me, and a lot of poems that I really felt. There were poems that like I thought that nobody else would have experienced. Like, when he talked about like his teeth, like, I've always been really insecure about my teeth. Like, now I don't care, but when I was younger I was. And so when I read his poem and like he talked about like his teeth and stuff, I really felt that. Or like when he talked about his brothers, like, I really felt that. Or there were specific lines that like I really felt in like the poems. Like there were just poems that I related to, like, or like being black, and like certain things about that. Like, there were just a lot of things that I could relate to, and I really appreciated that, and I loved it. So obviously I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. And I'm not really used to reading poetry, and I don't really read poetry a lot, or else the book would have been a 5-star. But that's not really his fault that I don't read poetry. So I guess technically it's a 5-star, because I loved and enjoyed it, and I sped right through it. And he literally kind of like dropped it like it was like, you know, a Beyonce, like, you know how Beyonce dropped her album, her self-titled album, and just like dipped. Like, he kind of just like, he was like, one day he was like, what if I write a poetry book? And then like 2 days later he was like, here's my poetry book. And I'm like, sis did that. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope that you liked it. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And today's emoji is gonna be the heart eyes emoji, and if you don't have a heart eye emoji, you can literally just comment heart eye emoji, and I honestly would kindly appreciate it. I really love seeing like who watches my video to the end. Like, it makes me feel so happy and also boosts my engagement. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, like, you know. So thank you for watching my video, and thank you for supporting me and helping me come as far as I am, because I really never imagined I would be here. I'm not gonna give that same speech again because I gave it in my last video, but I appreciate it so much, and thank you guys.